Hello, busy dads and busy people everywhere. You are looking at the grim prospect of my ice bath. Those brown shapes that you see floating around are not fish. They are leaves that have somehow ended up in there. And on the surface you see ice. Right here, my customary milk bottle ice cubes, you see, have a very thick encrusted layer of ice around them. Probably didn't need them in there last night. For the first time, it's properly cold. And I decided that I would need some company today to get into the bath. And there were some thoughts that I wanted to share with all of you. And so I'm going to get myself in there and sit down and try and talk to you, hopefully for 5 minutes, with these thoughts of mine. Hello, busy dads. So here I am in the ice bath. It's funny, something a friend said to me once is that, the ice itself kind of gets into your head, but the water can only be so cold underneath that ice. And sure enough, this doesn't feel fundamentally different from recent ice baths. It's something to remember. But still, it's good and cold. And I wanted to share some thoughts with you about the nature of a well-lived life, and specifically 2 philosophical models of what it looks like to live well and to be a virtuous person. So one model comes from antiquity, and it comes from Aristotle, and another comes from the modern period, and it comes from Kant. And scholars will tell you that there are probably caricatures in both of these models, but they really revolve around a question about the relationship between virtue and inclination. The basic question these philosophers in these models answer is, should it feel easy to do the right thing? And Aristotle had this idea that if you are properly habituated, if you train virtue, you will get to the point that the part of your soul that is irrational and that is desire-based will harmonize with the part of your soul that is rational. And you'll get this alignment of what you should do and what you want to do, so that virtue will have a kind of ease to it, a kind of flow. It will just always feel pretty good and pretty natural to do the right thing once you've acculturated yourself into virtue. Whereas Kant has this idea that we see virtue and moral goodness most clearly in cases where somebody is fighting against disinclination, but they do the right thing anyway. So on the one model, virtue involves a harmonization of what we desire and what we know is good. Whereas on the other model, there is always an antagonism between what we desire and what we know is good. And that makes us especially praiseworthy when we're able to conquer our inclinations and do the good thing in spite of not wanting to. And so the question is, which of those models do we think is appropriate? And for a long time, I have found value in both of them, and I've always wondered if they can be reconciled. I think they can. I think the answer is that there's something in both of those models, in the Aristotelian model and the Kantian model, and they apply to different domains. With respect to food, with respect to diet and nutrition, I think the Aristotelian model is appropriate. The more you train your gut microbiome by eating the right kinds of things, the easier it will become to eat those things, and the more you will crave them. So that virtue and your nutritional practices really will have the hallmarks of Aristotelian virtue. And the real hallmark is, the longer you do it, the easier it will get, because the closer the alignment will become between your desires and your knowledge of the good. But in other domains, And right now, I am talking to you from one of those domains. The Kantian model is appropriate. And the Kantian model, it seems to me, is appropriate where we have stubborn, recalcitrant disinclinations away from doing the right thing that we simply cannot overcome. And you can tell that that model is appropriate where, in cases where the longer you do something, the harder it gets. What really struck me last winter, and it's striking me again this winter, is that with every passing day, it gets harder, not easier, to get into this ice bath. There is a disinclination to doing this thing that I just cannot overcome. And so in this case, I think virtue involves the Kantian war between what you want to do and what you know is good for you. And today, I've won that war. It took me a lot to get in here. And I'm going to let myself out now and have a day where hopefully I can flow into a more easy, natural, Aristotelian, harmonious kind of virtue. But man, starting the day with some Kantian victories feels damn good. So we need both of these models, my friends, and we need to incorporate them in our lives. Do things that you don't want to do, but also learn to want to do the things that you know are good for you. If you can do both of those things on a regular basis, you will live well.